In this lesson, we're going to learn the process of unwrapping UVs for 3D models. Alright, so now that we have finished the modeling process, what we'll want to do is we'll want to unwrap the 3D model and get it ready to apply a texture to it. So for example, let's say that we wanted to apply a design that we've created in something like Photoshop, and we want to apply that to the side of our arcade cabinet. The only way that we would be able to do that is to unwrap the UVs. Now UVs are coordinates on a 3D object that can be understood in 2D space. So what does that mean exactly? That's still a little unclear. Well, the best way to learn about it is by doing it. So let's go ahead and select the arcade cabinet. The arcade cabinet, with it selected, let's apply a modifier to it. So let's go to our Modify panel, and then we're going to go to the Modifier list, and we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and this may be off screen, but you should see Unwrap UVW. With that applied, you can see it right here. And with that applied, what it will allow us to do is go ahead and start creating the UVs that we need for this object. So to get started with this, let's go to the Edit UVs rollout, and let's open UV Editor. Let's go ahead and pull this over onto the side, and I'm going to turn off the checker background. Now you'll notice that this looks a lot like our arcade cabinet from the side. This is an incomplete UV. Okay, it doesn't have any seams, and it's not split apart. What I want to be able to do is I want to be able to see all sides of my arcade machine in this space. Okay, but I want to be able to see it in a 2D fashion. So it's kind of like if you were to take an object, let's say an orange, and you wanted to peel that orange. So you start peeling back the skin, and you want to lay that flat onto a table. That's kind of the process that we're dealing here. We're trying to peel it away and lay it flat in this 2D space. So to get started with this, I like to start out in my 3D view. So scroll over in your rollouts here under the selection rollout and go to polygon mode. Let's select this polygon right here. With this polygon selected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply use a planar projection. Now what this will do is it's going to recognize the polygon that I have selected, and it's going to project the UVs in the specified direction. So let's click on this planar map projection. You'll notice that yellow gizmo. Notice how it's changed, and it's actually down in the Z direction, so it's looking over the top of the model. Notice how that's reflected over here. That doesn't actually look like the side of my arcade cabinet. So let's actually switch it to the X direction. Notice now that we have this UV, and now it looks like the side of our arcade cabinet. Very good. I'm also going to come over here, and you'll notice that we're in polygon mode. Let's turn on this little toggle, and this will select element mode. And what that will allow me to do is select all of the polygons in an object, or in the UV. So let's go ahead and turn off the planar map projection. Let's select that UV that we had at the very beginning, and let's just move that off into space here. I'm only worried about what's in here, okay? And what I place in here is usually what I've done already, okay, or what I've projected down. So let's go to the other side of the model. Let's select this polygon. Notice that that's coming up here, and let's use that planar map projection again. Now you'll notice that it looks pretty good, except for it's on this side over here. Let's go ahead and use X, okay, and you'll notice that that gizmo has come over here on this side. All right, great. Now what we have here is overlapping UVs. Sometimes overlapping UVs is okay. Let's make sure we turn off that planar map projection. Overlapping UVs means that we have UV shells, which are what these are, and they're overlapping one another in this space. So notice that I have one UV set, or cluster, or shell, is what they're sometimes called, and then I have this one. This cluster is controlling this side, whereas this cluster is controlling this side. I'm going to go ahead and separate them out. I don't want them to be together. So let's go ahead and just move it outside of that UV space. It's okay. We'll talk about arranging these at a later time. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and take a look at the rest of these pieces that are really important. So right up here at the top, I have these polygons, and something right here should be placed, something like the logo of the game or something like that. And so I'm just going to take those polygons and I'm going to use a planar projection, and I'm going to use the Y direction. Okay, notice how that is flattened out here. Okay, and then I'm just going to place that off in this direction. Now, one thing that you'll notice about the polygons and the UVs that we're putting in here, notice how they're squished together or they're stretched out. We'll talk about getting their proper scale at another time. So just in case you're wondering about that, it doesn't look exactly the same. Let's also do the same thing down here. Let's select this set of polygons. Let's use that planar projection, and we're going to use Y on that one. Okay, that one also looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and move that across. Turn off your planar map projection. If you hold down Shift and you use your Move tool and move that out, that will go ahead and move it in a straight line. So your Move tool, your Rotate tool, and your Scale tool. Alright, so now with that, we're all set there. And then I want to do the top right here. So select those 3 UV polygons, and let's do planar projection. This time we're going to use Z, and that comes out as well. Let's go ahead and turn off the planar map, and with your Move tool active, hold Shift, drag that out, and there we go. Alright, so now we have the rest of our arcade machine. We have the top, we have the back. I know that I'm not going to be placing any textures on that, and I'm just going to be putting materials on the rest of those. And so these UVs right here are what's most important to me right now, because I know that there's going to be a map going on those. And so I can leave those just the way they are. But we still need to do something with the rest of these. That's the rest of the object. So I need to flatten those out in some sort of way. I can do this by going up to Mapping, Flatten Mapping, and then hitting OK on that. Notice that it flattens all of those out and places those here inside of this 0 to 1 space. Now, this is not the greatest way of flattening something out. It does help, but it's not optimized in any way. If you want to learn more about unwrapping UVs, you can take a look at our Getting Started with UVs course. Or actually, there's another one called Introduction to UVs in 3ds Max, and it's another great course that you can learn more about this. But again, this is your first day, and we don't want to overwhelm you with this, as UVing can be very complicated. So I'm holding down Shift, and I'm just dragging that up and putting it out of the way. I do want to make sure that those are flat still, though. Now, in the next lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to learn about how to properly scale down your UVs, so that way we can get a texture applied to those properly. So we'll get started with that next.